That's really nasty looking, and you really don't want to run that stuff in this engine when you're trying to restart it. Yeah, a little 206 probably be okay, but still not ideal. And after the break, we're hoping to get this thing to where it'll start, run, and idle. But first, I have to go put this into a disposal area.
For 45 years, the Miller family and the dedicated staff at Autocrafters have been here helping you to restore your dream Ford. Thank you for your support. Here's to another 45 years of delivering parts for your Falcon, Fairlane, F100, Galaxy, Maverick, and Pinto.
All right, this is what your fuel is supposed to look like. This is a non-ethanol fuel. I think I had ethanol in there before, which can cause you a little bit of a problem with the fuel going bad a little quicker than a non-ethanol gasoline will. But that's what it should look like, not a nice deep orange color. Looks like you've been on a 4-day bender and going to take a wee. So I'm going to move on from there, and I'm going to start doing the little things that are going to need to be done to get this engine ready to run. Basically, after we got through with what we did the last time on here, I stopped because we needed a radiator hose. We needed to do a couple other little things. And I'm going to go over right now some of the little things that I have already done off camera, and then we're going to go into more detail and discuss the things that need to be hooked up in order to get this engine where it'll start and run correctly. All right, so one of the first things I did after I got these carburetors off is they had a really thin little piece of sheet steel on here that keeps this whole conglomeration assembly that Ford did for the throttle assembly from moving around. This upper piece right here should say stay stable. It shouldn't be able to rock around. Even so, this one can rock around a little bit with the way we've got it set up. It will cause you some problems with changing the idle signal on the car. It's really hard to find the rod that went with these, and I'm not even real sure where they go. There's a rod that goes from this piece up here down to this little plate back here in the back on the throttle rod itself, right there where the throttle rod comes in. There was a rod like this that's up in here somewhere, I think, and it ran down to here, and that stabilized it where it needed to be. But you can also do what they've done here and put a plate on there. Eventually, I'm going to probably go in and get a little bit thicker sheet steel and try to make that a little bit more meaty than what it is right now so it doesn't walk around on him while he's driving the car. The other thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and hook up my fuel line again now that I know I've got good clean gas coming in there. So fuel line needs to be hooked up. I'm going to hook that up and get the clamp on it. I'm really fortunate I'll smell like gas for the rest of the day. So that should be good enough to hold us there. Now this is your main vacuum line coming off of your distributor. You'll want to hook this up because if you don't, you'll have a vacuum leak at this port and it's not going to signal correctly to the carburetor. So this will need to either be hooked up or plugged. I'm going to go ahead and hook it up. I need to go get me some line wrenches to do that because this stuff is pretty picky because it is a brass fitting, not steel. It's a little more likely to get damaged on the rehook. I'm also going to get my stuff and hook my choke back up. I don't know if it's going to be a problem for the choke not working, but we're going to hook this up because this could also be a vacuum leak on the car. These things are available. You can get the vacuum tube for the choke. You can get a brand new line assembly for these 6 cylinders now. There's a ton of stuff out there for them. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I've got a line wrench. These are line wrenches. You want to invest in a set of these if you're working on a classic car because they work really well on stuff with the carburetor as well as on your braking system on here, going in and then taking brake lines loose. Like when we go and change out, say, a master cylinder, we'll want to have these on hand because they're much better than a standard combination wrench. I'm going to get this on here. And what I'll do is I'll kind of hold the line in play, push it up against the threads theoretically, walk it back and forth to make sure it's not catching and cross-threading because we are going brass to brass and it can cross-thread in a heartbeat. This one is a lot more critical than the choke one is. And I'm going to probably take that choke and try to just open it up so that it stays open. I'm checking right now to see if I feel any looseness in there. It's still not quite tight enough. Getting there. You'll be able to feel it if you do this with the line. You'll be able to feel it walking if it's not tight enough yet. There we go. That should be good to go. Okay, so here's what we got going on. I Got a radiator from a buddy of mine that has a 68 6-cylinder Falcon. He moved over to a V8, and so he took the radiator out, put a bigger radiator in it for use with this car. The radiator that was in here was the original 66 radiator for this Falcon. The difference is that in 1960 something or other or somewhere, they went from a small opening, which is what this hose is, to a 1.5 inch opening on here, and I'm hoping it's a 1.5 inch down there because it's different than this hose. This radiator end won't fit with the hose that was on the car already. So I'm hoping that the new 1.5 and 1.5 will all bolt up to here. Ooh. All right, now here's a good case in point for you. This is really rusty inside of the water pump, and if that's the case, on these I can feel down and feel the impeller. At least one of the impeller blades is in decent shape on this thing, so we might be all right. But anytime you've got rust like this and rust inside the hose, you stand a chance on anything, V8, 6-cylinder, it doesn't matter, of the impeller actually having rusted out in the pump itself, or worse yet, the bearings going bad on it, and you're just going to start puking water everywhere. Initial startup on these things, I never run coolant in them. They run okay for startup with just straight water, and you do that so that you're not puking coolant everywhere if the water pump does go south on you. So we're going to have to deal with that. All right, so this is quite possibly the worst V-belt I have ever seen that is still holding together somewhat on an automobile. We're going to get rid of this one, and I'm hoping the one that we got from the auto parts store is the right one. One of the things I'm running into quite a bit now is parts not being right for what their application is. I'm going to put the belt on and see if it's going to even sync up. Yep, it will. It's actually a little tight to there. I can pull it back a little bit more. If you're doing any kind of work with an alternator, on the early Ford stuff, if you're running a stock alternator, the box lug that the main bolt goes through, either on the bottom of the alternator or on the top like it is here on a 6-cylinder, that's where you grab onto it with an adjustable wrench. One of the places in life where an adjustable wrench actually makes sense. You can take the adjustable wrench, and in this case I'm going to try to pull it this way a little more. That'll give you good leverage on it, and it'll also let you do your adjustments on it down the road too. This belt is a little small. To what I was saying a moment ago. That's about right. I'm just going to tighten this up next. I'm going to put pressure on this one, and I'm going to tighten up the main bolt here. This alternator is also not sitting correctly. We're going to end up probably having to pull this thing off and straighten all this up. It's actually angled toward the radiator on the passenger side. Okay, now we have our alternator belt on. I'm going to get the new radiator hose I've got and try to install that. I actually went with a radiator hose off of a V8 for this. I'm going to see if that's going to work because I'm not sure that it's going to be the right size. I have a replacement for the one that goes to the bottom of the radiator off of the water pump, but I'm not going to install that one right now just to get this thing running. This is a V8 radiator. Now this end is a V8 end. It's a 1.5 inch opening. And so I'm going to hopefully be able to cut this down a little bit and then change the angle of attack some to get it down to there. I'm going to try cutting this off right about there. And I'm going to have to whittle this end off to make this work. I'm hoping I can pull this together with the V8 hose because I just couldn't get the correct 6-cylinder hose that was in the 1.5 inch size. All of them are in the 1 1/4. So I'm going to try and make this work, and we'll see what we get out of it. Try to cut it right before it makes that turn. So a little bit of wheeling here. Remember, kids, always cut towards yourself. Just kidding. Don't cut towards yourself. This is not my preferred look for this. I'm going to put this on. This is our old one. you're doing this, always make sure you try to put these where you can get to them from up top. That. I'm going to put it this way so it's out here. All I'm doing right now is I'm going to try to test fit it. It's got a little bit of a kink in it right here, but that'll be fine for what we're doing for right now. And I could probably go in and cut just a tad off the nose of this one here in order to push it this way. Give myself the room I need. I'll put this on, and off camera I'll tighten all these up, all the fasteners up, and we should be good to go for now. Fudge. Why don't we just wait till he leaves? If you want that FedEx to show up, just start filming something. They'll be here right away. As soon as we put water to this thing, we started seeing leaks in a couple of different places. This is one of the reasons I like using water instead of doing a 50-50 coolant or adding straight concentrate coolant to it right now. For an initial run-in, you're going to be finding things on an old car like this that's not had anything big done to it. So you're going to want to locate those problems, and the best way to locate them is to put water in it. One of the things we did is I had to use a couple of huge bolts to just take care of a leak that was on this particular hose coming into the water pump. You can see the brake, the old brake right there, right off of the clamp that I've put on here. The shank is all the way down in there so that we're hopefully knocking that thing off and it's not going to leak. If it does start to leak, I can just tighten up the clamps a little bit. Proof that if you're in a jam and the radiator hose for a 6-cylinder is harder to find, you can actually use a V8 hose, which you can find at like AutoZone and places like that, to replace it. And you just use the V8 hose on here. The only thing you may have run into a problem is if you're running an original radiator with a 1 1/4 inch size here on the neck, it could cause you a problem. Basically that's it. I'm going to leave the cap off of here for right now so that we can do that for our initial start. I'm going to go ahead and use my starter button to do just an initial crank on it to get everything rolling around, get some fuel up into the carburetor and all of that stuff. Okay. Now I'm going to probably want to add a little bit of water to it. Looks like we've run our water down a little bit, pulling the pump, causing the pump to go around. You may have heard me sniff. There's a reason for that. I'm sniffing to see if I smell fuel coming from anywhere or if I have a problem with an electrical fault that's causing an odor that I can smell that smells like an electrical fire. So far, none of that's going on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to throw a little bit of gas down its throat. I'm going to have Jackson get inside and actually use the key to try to start the car. Pull these off, get them out of the way. So, let me give you some fuel in here. Uh-oh, we got a leak right here. Doing that, I can see a leak on this. We may have a problem here with our accelerator pump housing. This housing may be bad because when I push the accelerator down, you can see fuel coming out like that. I'm hoping I can tighten these up a little bit more and make it work. These are the trials of starting up one of these old cars. Little bitty leaks and things like that kicking you. I don't know that I hear a whole lot from the accelerator pump on it. All right, Jackson, why don't you jump in there? Jackson's running camera for me today on one of the cameras, so I'm going to have him jump in there and try to start it up for me. I'm going to move, just in case. You ready? Yeah. idling a little rough initially, but we have a running 6-cylinder, folks. What? I can't hear you, it's really loud. Jackson said it's really loud. I'm gonna let it idle for a minute. Give it just a titch of juice, not much. A little bit of throttle. Now what you'll want to do is let it warm up. I don't know where that's coming from, but we're getting a little bit of smoke on the car. What I'm doing right now is I'm adjusting the idle mixture screw. I'm trying to figure out how I can keep this idle down where it needs to be. I'm pushing down on the accelerator right now. All right, I know what you're thinking. The idle adjustment for this thing must be on that side of the carburetor, since that's where the idle mixture screw is for you to adjust the idle mixture. But it's not. It's actually right there where I'm showing you, underneath the carburetor tag. So if I want to drop my idle, lay the screwdriver on the top of the valve cover, and that's probably about as low as it's going to go, because I keep turning it out and it's not going anywhere. What I'm doing now is I'm just playing around with the choke a little bit and seeing where that's set at. So what you would also want to do then is possibly muck around with your choke line as well, because it does have some play on where that is set. The choke may be a little stuck on this one. It doesn't look like it. Right there is about where I would want it to idle at, so I may have a little more carburetor work to do on this thing. Now I'm going to go back on the other side and button this bad boy up. It's a little rough at idle, but I think that's more of a carburetor problem and a bad exhaust system problem than anything else. This engine is idling nice. There's no ticks. There's no knocking from the bottom end. If I had a good oil pressure gauge, I would say it probably even holds decent oil pressure. So basically, what I would want to do right now is keep that down. Jackson, hand me that flat blade screwdriver right there. On an old Ford, you don't want to have your idle too high. And your idle adjustment screw is where you're going to want to make your settings. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start turning the idle adjustment screw out, stopping, turn it out, stop, turn it out, stop. Because sometimes it takes it just a second to catch up. A little more. I think Jackson's got him a winner here. Look at that. A little more. You go too far and it's going to start running rich. That right there is about where that thing needs to be sitting for idle. I'm not going to let this thing run too much longer. As soon as I take that off, you can see it kind of picks up. All right, I've got a little bit of blow by possibly, but I'm not feeling anything really big off the cap. It's not pushing a ton out through there. I would want to check the PCV to see how that is, but I'm not unhappy with the way we're running right now. I still got to figure out what our idle issue is, because I'd like to see it idling a little lower. That's probably a little too low, but I think some of that's going to be done with carburetor adjustment. All right, Jackson, kill it. Well, you know,
it's pretty cool.
I'm going to tell you something, dude. You went from a $500 car to a $1,500 car just with that. It runs good enough. It's got a little bit of smoke coming out through the cap up here, but some of that may be made to go away when we do a couple things to the car. We may have to put umbrella seals on the engine, on the top end.
What's that?
I'll explain that. But you got a good little runner here, dude. I'm impressed with what we bought. We done good. So far I'm really happy. Really happy with what we got. And so, folks, with that, do me a favor, be kind to each other, love on each other, treat each other nice. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you on down the road as airplanes fly over, German tanks run through the background, all that stuff. I am not believing how nice that runs. Seriously. I was expecting it to knock when we started it.
Like the one you got in there?
Like the one in there, but it didn't. It's running good. So,
perfect.
So far so good. Onward and forward.
As everything rattles loose.